Hello, everyone. Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. Woo! This is a brand new show, and I am so happy to bring it to you. We're going to call this one Date the Right One. And what it is that we're talking about dating issues, relationship issues, issues that will help you move through and we hope successfully into meeting someone along the way and actually building a relationship of your choice. And as I say that, we're going to move through to a wonderful guest that we have tonight because I think that that's going to help you. But before we do, let's do our homework. I am Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of relationship building. And what I do is I help bring you through and connect with you through some of the difficult times in our lives, through that transition of relationship loss, through to dating. And we do a lot of various different things on our Going Solo network. So I hope you'll check us out. All of our information is on goingsolo.network.com. And then, of course, our radio is our Going Solo Media. And you can reach me on goingsolo.network@gmail.com. I love to hear from you. So please do so. But let's get on with our topic because tonight I wanted to bring this to you as the very first show because we all struggle with our personalities and then connecting with somebody else's, right? And we really do want to have that wonderful relationship where we can relate to someone. We can really maybe even have our soulmate, right? And sometimes we get confused with that. So what better way to sort that out with tonight's guest? We're going to talk about the Love Factor Inventory. It's a special test that you can take, and it's by our wonderful guest. Let's bring him up right here. We have Dr. Ronald Mann. He's a psychologist and author of 6, famous books that are out there. And Dr. Mann, you have been helping people awaken their consciousness for over 40 years. Your presence and depth of intuitive insight, along with your psychological training, and you really have a unique expert, into the field of spiritual development. And so this test that you actually have put together, I took it. Okay. I took it. You know what? I kind of put it off. I'll tell all the audience. I kind of put it off thinking, oh, what is this test I got to take? Right. And so I thought, okay, last night, late at night, and you probably even know the time I took it. I took it very late and I loved it. Okay. I absolutely loved it. You guys can go on lovefactorinventory.com and you can see it there. But it was like 100 and some questions, right, Dr. Mann?
124.
144 questions. I went right through it 24. Very quickly. So it wasn't hard, it wasn't a difficult thing. It wasn't tricky questions, trying to get you caught up in anything, but it really gave you tremendous insight. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, Dr. Mann, tell us a little bit about yourself and why did you decide to put together, a test like this that will help people through being able to understand not only themselves, but to be able to be maybe a better partner to someone. So share with us that.
Thanks, Cece. It's great to be here, and it's a good question. My background is in training as a licensed clinical psychologist. I have a PhD in adult and child psychology. I was in private practice for many years. I was in Beverly Hills initially, then I moved up to Northern California. And I have a big background in test development, testing per se. And when I first got out of school, I had my PhD. I'm in Beverly Hills practicing, and I'm walking down Camden Avenue thinking this is a joke. I was 26 when I got my PhD. I just went straight through. So I'm 27, and I'm thinking people are putting their lives with me and wanting me to help them. I think it's a joke. I'm a child. I've gone straight through school. I have a great education, but I have no life experience. So I thought, I need life experience. So while I'm walking down the street, I asked myself, what scares me most about life? And the first thing that popped into my head was death. So I put out the word that I wanted to work with some terminally ill people. And because I was trained as a child psychologist, I thought, well, let's use those skills and work with kids. So very quickly, I got a referral for a young 3-year-old boy who had an astrocytoma tumor. It was terminal. Because of him, I went and met Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She's the woman who wrote the books about the stages of death and dying, and she actually became a mystic later in her life.
Mhm.
I was in Hawaii at one of her week-long intense workshops, and I had a mystical awakening there. I started seeing past life experiences. I had a direct experience of being with Jesus. My heart opened up. My spiritual eye opened up. I could see energy, move energy, and I just became this more loving guy who realized there's a lot more going on than what we have in our mind. Psychology in those days was very much focused on what you knew and on what you thought and how you felt. Clueless about spirituality or the soul. That was not the realm. Back in those days, psychology wanted to look very professional, so they didn't want to talk about anything but mainstream kind of material psychological consciousness.
Mhm.
So I'm in practice as a psychologist. I've had this mystical awakening. I'm now hanging out with healers and yogis and seeing the power that love has to transform our lives, not only internally, but also the nature of our relationships, and how real power comes from a direct experience of our soul and our capacity to consciously connect and realize our relationship with the divine and bring that into everyday life. So I thought there must be some way to measure this and talk about this. And because of my interest in psychological testing and my training as a psychologist, I decided to do the process to create a new psychological test that didn't exist. So I asked myself, well, when I talk to people, how do I think about what their capacity is for engagement with other people? Because typically people are coming in, they're hurt, they're wounded, they're depressed, they're lonely, they want relationships, their relationships haven't worked. So the question always is it me? Is it them? What's going on? Right. So I thought about the issues that related to those kinds of questions. And the scales that I standardized are compassion, friendship, intimacy, a masculine feminine dimension. A primitive self looks at how comfortable you are with kind of your shadow material, your level of psychological adjustment, self-respect, sensitivity, spirituality. It's unique because it's one of the few tests around that looks at spirituality, trust. And it's important to note here that to call it a test doesn't do it full service because it's much more than a test. When we think of a test,
I agree with that. I think that it's I think it's like an insight, right?
It's a process.
It's a process. It's very insightful. And we're going to talk about my test and the results of that in a little bit. But I found it extremely fascinating.
Well, I'm glad you did. Mm-hmm. So I developed the test, and I did it because I wanted to find a way to also educate my colleagues about how to think about love. And in those days, that was cutting edge. It was too cutting edge. The California Psychological Association wrote me a letter and said, you can't measure love. You're in violation of our principles. Stop marketing this thing or we'll throw you out of the organization.
Oh my.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
So now, things have changed and it's more mainstream. But in those days, it was cutting edge. So I wanted to bring this into kind of our consciousness and do it. So I've spent years working with people from a psychological point of view and also to help people develop and grow spiritually. I've had some profound spiritual experiences. I've been meditating, doing Kriya Yoga for 40 years with Paramahansa Yogananda's Kriya Yoga process. And I integrate all that. And I've integrated into sports psychology. I've worked with a lot of athletes, some professional, a lot of junior golfers. And so I recently republished the Love Factor inventory and started marketing it to get it more introduced in the world again, because we all know we're going through difficult times.
Yeah.
COVID has created a ton of interpersonal problems. People are isolated. We're coming out of that slowly but surely. I'm not sure people have the skills that they need to make the connections, to draw the right person to them. So this test is really what I call more of a sacred process, because as you get the results, the value is to have a conversation and to go deeper into your responses and to understand. So it's a profound way to introspect. For coaches and therapists who want a tool to help them work with people, it's a great tool to have in your professional toolkit.
Well, it made me very aware. I mean, when I got the results back, I was like, wow, check this out. I was very, very impressed with it. And so we can talk a little bit about that. So shall we go through some of the various steps, like you said, the compassion, friendship, psychological adjustment, masculine, feminine. We talk about that a lot in dating, the masculine, feminine. So should we talk a little bit about each one of those things? How would you like to approach this?
Well, we could talk a little bit about that. If I bring up something on my screen, I'm not sharing my screen, right?
No, I don't see anything. No.
So I can bring up.
I could have made I didn't think about it. I could have made a slide on this, so I do apologize.
No, that's okay, because I will just kind of walk through this.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of use your test. Ultimately, we'll
by the inside of me. Now you guys are going to see.
Okay, so each scale has about 10 items in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the compassion scale, I'm not going to give all the items in it because I want it to be new for people if they choose to take it. But for instance, here's a few of the items in it. I am not a forgiving person. And basically what we do is we ask you to respond, say, well, you agree or disagree in terms of how well that describes you. All right. I find it difficult to tolerate other people's emotional suffering. I do not feel a great sympathy for those who suffer in life. So we can see that these kind of items ask you to reflect on how you are with people. And compassion is not only a psychological trait for kind of relationship stuff, but it's also a spiritual quality. If someone says, oh, I'm very spiritual, but they're not very compassionate, they're not very kind to people, they tend to be judgmental, then one wonders, well, what do you mean by spirituality? Because if you really have a spiritual depth and some degree of awakening, you've opened up to your soul. The nature of your soul is love, joy, bliss. And these are profound states that enhance your ability to relate to other people. I mean, everybody's heard about The Secret. It's somewhat watered down in the way they talk about it, but it is based on the notion of magnetism, that it's all energy. What you put out in the world is what you draw back to you. Right. It's kind of related to karma. And so, if you want to be in a relationship with someone who's nice to you, who has compassion to you, then the best thing you can do is to be a compassionate person yourself. Right? You will
absolutely
draw to you that which you are. And so these scales basically help you answer the question, are you ready for the love you want? Because people often say, I haven't met the right person. My question is, well, if the right person showed up, would they want to be in a relationship with you? Right? What's going on with you? You change yourself, you'll change the world.
Right. And I used to always say too, is would you recognize it if you saw it? Right. If you saw the right person, Because if you're not on the same plane, so to speak,
Mhm.
you're not going to recognize that person when they come forward.
That's true.
Mhm.
And one of the values of this process is because it's so well researched and it demonstrates differences. People who have good relationship skills and are married and happy, they score higher on these. And so it helps you introspect. It becomes like a mirror. Because if you want to draw something to you, the clearer you are in your own mind about what you want, the stronger force you become to bring that into your life. So if you're clear about, well, what does it mean to be compassionate? It's much easier to see it and recognize it and to recognize when it's not there.
Right.
So if you're with somebody who you're attracted to, but the way they treat you isn't all that great, you may not have to suffer as long to come to the decision that, well, maybe this isn't the best choice for me. And the process is actually great for couples or people who are wanting to be couples because you can take it together. Each person can take it, share your results. You can even rate each other and show how you perceive them. So it's a profound process of discovery. Next skill, friendship. It's one thing to be romantically involved with somebody and be highly attracted to them. But if you're going to have a relationship that lasts over time, friendship becomes a meaningful dimension. Can you hang out together? Can you spend your life together? Do you have things to share? And are you able to really be there for somebody else in an unconditional way where you really listen? You got yourself out of the way. You're not just thinking about you. You're also thinking about them. So one of the first questions that I often feel a close friendship with my loved ones, or I usually have many things in common with my loved ones. I do not stand by my friends when they're going through a difficult time. These kinds of items help us again to reflect. And if our scores are low on a particular scale, then we can dive deeper and go into each scale and look at the items, which we'll do in a minute with you, and see how you responded. And that's where the real magic comes. I have some people that I've certified to be LFI certified coaches, so they can help walk you through your results if you want to have a deeper look at what's going on. It's a profound opportunity. You can spend a half an hour talking about one or two items, and there's 124 items.
Right.
So you can really go much deeper. There's an intimacy scale. I don't know, we could spend a lot of time just going through each one, but rather than maybe go into the items of each one, intimacy talks about, your comfort with being close with someone, being able to share your feelings, being able to listen. Are you able to be vulnerable? Do you have someone connected with you and being open? Do you want to listen to the feelings of other people? Intimacy is a kind of a psychological, emotional state that comes from the heart, and it requires the ability to tolerate somebody else's inner life and not to be afraid when you get close. Sometimes people get scared. They're worried about stuff, and that stuff usually is based on their early childhood development. And so they might back away. So we'll get to it in a second, the psychological adjustment scale. But there's a masculine feminine scale, and it looks at what is your kind of orientation. Do you focus on feelings and emotions, or are you really more logical and mental? Relationships do well when there's a blend of that, and your emotional life is available, and you can share that. Primitive self scale is an interesting scale. It comes from Jungian psychology, and it talks about how comfortable you are with what Jung calls the shadow, kind of the darker elements that are within us, the heavier things: anger, hurt, jealousy, rage, fear, stuff like that. And if we're inclined not to want to share that kind of stuff for whatever reasons, then we might not be as open and let people in as much as we could. And so that can create a little distance in a relationship. Psychological adjustment kind of looks at how you feel about being yourself, your real self. It's not a test of psychopathology. Nobody gets scored based on some kind of diagnosis here. It's a self-help, personal development kind of instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the items here is I often feel emotionally hurt in my close relationships. Well, if that's true, the question becomes, well, why is that happening? What kind of choices are you making? Who do you let in? I'm afraid to express my real self. So again, all these items generally are designed to draw you deeper within yourself. It's an introspective process designed for personal transformation. And in the interest of time, let me just go down to the spirituality scale.
Mm-hmm.
Spirituality, I put in there because of my personal experience, that I found that when I started having these spiritual experiences, I became a better human being. I was more sensitive. I was more compassionate. I had this unconditional sense of accepting people, and I had a greater desire to help and serve other people. I had a lot of psychotherapy in my training as a clinical psychologist. And yet, my spiritual practice opened up and resolved issues that I could never touch in psychotherapy and weren't even relevant in psychotherapy, actually. So I added this scale. And I believe that if you're interested in enhancing your spirituality, you can look at I call it the LFI. Look at the LFI results and see which scales relate to your spiritual life. There's a interesting saying that your spirituality is tested in the true light of day, which means that how you treat other people, are you angry? Are you reactive? Are you fearful? Are you selfish? Those things we see in everyday life. Well, those are reflections into how deeply connected you are to your spiritual nature and how much of that nature is able to be expressed in everyday life.
Yeah, I tell you, I found it so interesting. We're going to have to go on a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about my test results, where I will tell you, some I was higher at, and then one I was really low in. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that. But there's no right or wrong, right, in these results, are there? I mean,
no,
it's
they're
really
not.
about
No.
you and maybe areas that you might want to work on, right?
Exactly. It will help you know more quickly if there are important areas that you could choose to work on. Mm-hmm. And if you do, you can improve.
Yeah. So I think this is really an eye-opener. It certainly was for me. So everyone, we have Dr. Mann here with us today, and he's a psychologist and an author he's got like 6 books out there. So he's really written a lot of books. We're talking about a test that was on the Love Factory, or is it? No, lovefactorinventory.com. So just remember that is lovefactorinventory.com. You can go there yourself and take the test. But it was truly an eye-opener for me. And we're going to share my results when we come back from this commercial break. You guys are listening to a brand new show. It's called Date the Right One, right here on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We want to do a shout out to our sponsors, which is a brand new internet dating connection community site called meettherightone.com. So we want to thank them for sponsoring this show and going forward. Again, I'm Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of Relationship Building, and we're going to be right back with wonderful Dr. Mann. Thank you so much for being on the show here with us today. And just hang tight. We're going to learn about my results on the Love Factor inventory. So Dr. Mann, hang tight. We'll be right back.
If the world fades to black and white, well, I wouldn't mind, no, I would not cry, 'cause you are the rainbow in my sky. If the seas took us all away, well, I wouldn't mind, no, I would not pray if you are the ship sail.
Welcome back to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You guys are listening to a brand new show called Date the Right One, and I am Cece Shatz, your host tonight. I'm the Doyenne of Relationship Building, and we have wonderful Dr. Mann here with us. We're talking about Love Factory. Is it Love Factory Inventory? Do I have it right?
Love Factor.
Love Factor.
Inventory.
I had a feeling I did that wrong. I
Yeah.
do apologize for that. But
Yeah,
we
people
want to
say
make
that.
sure we show you the website here, which is the Love Factor Inventory. And it's so important to be able to. But I tell you what, I just loved the test. I took it myself last night. I was really very surprised at the results of it. And so let's talk about that. We can talk about, do you want to talk about like my highest score one and then my lowest score, or which would you
Yeah.
prefer to talk about?
No, I think that's a good way to go. We'll go
Okay.
high and low. So your highest score was sensitivity. You scored at the top of the percentile range on that, 100%.
So
Right.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, if generally it's good. Let's look at the items in the scale and see what you said and why you came out that high. It says, I cannot tell when I'm picking up on someone else's emotional vibrations. And you said, I absolutely disagree, which means you can. You're very sensitive. So that is kind of a mixed blessing. On the one hand, it's a great asset to be able to tune into somebody and know what's going on, but it also makes you more sensitive to things. And so you have to learn how to manage feeling things that may be uncomfortable. And for people they call themselves empaths, that's kind of a learned thing they have to struggle with. But to be more sensitive, I think is great, because if you can tell what's going on, you have more information to assess your surroundings, to assess people. More information we have, I think the better decisions we make. Again, the sensitivity scale is all about how sensitive are you, right? When I walk into a room, I cannot pick up on the mood of people there. You disagree with that, absolutely, which means you can. So you come in again, the same emotional sensitivity to kind of energy, vibration that comes through emotions. And so if you're in a relationship with somebody and they're feeling hurt, the fact that you can pick that up and know that makes you, I think, a great asset to have in a relationship because you're going to be more sensitive. And your compassion score was also high. So not only are you kind of perceiving what's going on, you're not judging them. I mean, you're unconditionally accepting them. And so you're ready, available, and able to engage people at a deeper level. That's where intimacy comes from. I do not try to show up on time. You absolutely disagree. This item came in there because in my own personal life, when I'm around people, we have a plan. I say, okay, we're going to meet at so-and-so, and they show up 15, 20, 30 minutes late. I find that incredibly insensitive and disrespectful, right? So if you're going to, and you say that's not you, I mean, you do show up on time.
Oh, wait, I say I show up on time?
Yeah.
Okay, that one could be wrong.
That
one might have been wrong. I might have read it wrong because I am late.
You are late. Well, that might have brought the score down a little bit. You'll still be high. That's only one on that.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be
I try
late,
not to be late, but for some reason, I am late. And one thing I wanted to say too is like when I walk into a room, it's not only that I can feel things that are within the room, I am sought out when I'm in the room. I can go into a large group of people and there will always be someone that will come to me and then start telling me about their, what's happened to them. And so it happens all the time to me.
And Cece, how do you understand that?
Wait, what do you mean? How do I understand it?
Well, how do you explain that to yourself? I mean, do you know why that happens? Why people come seek you out and open up?
Well, I never really understood it before, but I just think that I have that understanding gift where people can talk to me and they feel comfortable and they'll share all kinds of things with me,
right,
that they wouldn't share with other people. I mean, I don't know if it's I've been told that I have like intuitive skills and that I'm an empath healer. And I did a course in prayer counseling in, where you lay on the hands and do a prayer counselor. And so I've done, various different things like that. But I'm always surprised when it happens, when people come to me, and then they start sharing with me and, I'm grateful that they do. I'm not, right. I'm very grateful that they do.
Well, let me tell you my understanding of this, because the same thing happens to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a conversation with somebody else the other day about this same topic. Is that you have to remember, we're all vibration, we're all energy and consciousness, right? And so people respond to that. It's rare to find somebody who's very present, lives in the moment, their heart is open, they're unconditional, and they're available to actually listen, and they're capable of feeling, tuning in, and really sensing what's going on. People are drawn to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody who especially has some pressing need to share something, they will find you, and like a magnet be drawn to you. And they keep opening up and keep talking and keep revealing themselves because you are a field that is inviting them in.
Mm-hmm.
And people will do that. I was on an airplane many years ago coming back from Hawaii. We're in the landing pattern going to LA International. A couple of minutes before we're supposed to land, stewardess comes over. I'm on an end seat. She starts talking to me, and within less than a minute, she's crying and telling me about her father who just died. And so we have this conversation, and I have this background in working with dying people and stuff. And then after we talked for a while, she said, "Oh, thanks so much. I feel so much better. I got to go back to work." And she walked away, and then she went. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
People on an energetic level will find you. And as long as you're really available and open, they'll keep talking. They'll talk a lot. They'll tell you things that maybe they've never told anybody else. And so that's part of the gifts that you bring into the world because of the nature of your being. And so, if your partner is someone who values intimacy, values sharing, they're going to love you, right? Because you're there and you're available to have that.
But then let's talk about, and we only have a few more minutes left, but let's talk about where I scored the worst or the least.
Right.
It's not right or wrong. It's not, but maybe where I can actually do some work on myself.
Right. So that was the primitive self scale. And as a refresher, I said, that's the scale, that looks at your comfort with what's going on inside of you. Kind of the darker elements. You remember the Star Wars series? Did you watch any of that?
Yeah, some of them, yes. Mm-hmm.
Remember when Luke went into the cave and Yoda said, go into the cage and confront your dark side, and Darth Vader shows up looking like him and he has to fight him? Right. Remember that scene? That is the shadow. It's like we all have elements within us that are more in the darker side. They're not full of light and upliftment. Everybody has a tendency to be angry, tendency to be jealous. It's what we do with those things that makes the difference. Do we identify with that stuff? Do we live it out? Or do we have some spiritual practice or some way to transform those energies into higher vibrations, so we're more into love and more into light? So these questions look at how comfortable are you with what's in there. And first question, I try to avoid letting anyone know that I feel jealous. You moderately agree with that. Mm-hmm. So you're a little guarded about letting people know about those kinds of elements within you. I try to avoid letting anyone know that I feel upset. You're kind of neutral. Right? So it's not like, no, it's okay. I can let people know, but it's not at the farther end either, saying, no, absolutely, I will never let anybody do that. But just those first two items. Do you have any thoughts, reaction to just those two items that we talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I tend, even though that I'm one to listen to someone else's problems and someone else's, deep side of them, I'm not so apt to give mine. I'm not apt to share. I mean, I'll share things that maybe is relatability, right, to someone if we're on that conversation because it would help them. But I won't go and just share my stuff. I won't, I keep that kind of under wraps. And the same thing with, like, if I get jealous or something like that, I might get jealous, but I don't really show it because I feel like it's not really what I should be doing. I should be more trusting, right? But then again, I am human, and it's like, I don't like this. So, it's like, okay, but then again, yeah. So I do tend to keep it at bay because, like, is it real? Is it realistic, or is it just, just maybe stuff from my past, some things from my past. So I'll kind of bury it a little bit. And maybe I shouldn't really do that. Maybe these are some things that I personally need to address and go a little bit deeper, think a little bit more. But here's the thing, Dr. Mann, I would have never thought about it had I not taken the love factor inventory test. I would not have thought about these things. I would not have thought about where I scored, and I scored very high on a lot of the aspects. So I think that as a person, I'm pretty well-rounded individual.
True.
I think personally, I'm a very good catch.
Right.
But I'm just kidding. But I do think that I'm a good person but like everyone, there are elements of me that I should continue working on and continue growing, because I think as we continue with life, we want to be the best partner we can be to someone, right? And we want to be the best person we can be for ourselves. So, this was I thought this was a very good test. It's pretty inexpensive to do. It doesn't take long to do it. Those out there, if you're looking at dating or you're looking at just really trying to be more whole on yourself, it's a good test because it breaks it down in all these different elements that really let you know where you maybe need to work on a little bit for yourself. And so I was surprised about this low score on this area here. But then as I'm listening to it, and what it means, I can see that I do have issues within that.
Right. And, whether you should or shouldn't deal with this stuff, I don't think is the issue. It's do you want to? Because the gain is that if you were more comfortable with this, you might find that you get more nurtured in life. You're good at nurturing other people, but you may not allow other people in as much. You have to pick the right person, right? But allow them to really understand and care about you. And if you have certain feelings and reactions and you tend to kind of try to suppress them, it kind of closes you down a little bit, creates a little distance between you and the other person. And the quickest way to resolve issues sometimes is just talk about them.
Right.
Bring them out in the open, and they kind of dissolve just by the airing of your feelings. And you can even say, listen, I don't even know if this is realistic. Could just be based on my early stuff, but this is what I'm feeling and it's making me a little uncomfortable. So I just want to talk about it, try and clear the air. So if you're willing to listen, here we go, and and you can say it. So you kind of create the environment where it's okay to have a feeling. It doesn't have to be right or wrong. And the person may say or do something that's very reassuring and make you feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if nothing else, it will create a bond with someone. So, I find the more that we share of ourselves, the more we give of ourselves, we create a bond with those that are important to us. And so it's important. Not only do we listen to someone, but we also share and exchange. Because I tend to listen a lot. I hear a lot, I absorb a lot, but sometimes I don't share my own, and that doesn't make a good, solid relationship. So, we have to do that.
Cece, how does that feel for you when you've been giving a lot to other people and feel like you haven't gotten enough in return?
Well, I get mad. No, I get hurt. My feelings get hurt. I mean, I don't understand it. And the reality is it's probably something I'm creating for myself, right? Because I'm not sharing, right?
Right. Looks like it. Because if people sense that you're uncomfortable with something, they're not going to go there. It's like when you show up and you're so available, people open up and talk.
Right.
Well, if people sense in you that you're not comfortable opening up and sharing certain things, act of kindness on their part may be to just avoid it. And so you're, in a way, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy,
right,
by doing that. And so
the other thing is too, Dr. Mann, I'm attracting those that are I think more self-centered,
That's right.
because I'm not exposing. So it's like they're not even realizing that I'm not exposing because they're so busy talking about themselves, all about them, how they're feeling, all of this stuff. And I'm listening, absorbing it. But those, that's not it's not a balanced relationship. Right. And so in order to create, from what I'm seeing and hearing, is in order for me to create a balanced relationship, I have to also give of myself, and not keep those feelings, suppressed, basically.
Personally, I think it's a gift when you share stuff like that, because your inner life is sacred, right? You just don't go around sharing it with anybody. So if you choose to share something personal with another person, to me, that's an incredible gift that you're giving to somebody, that you're allowing them in that kind of way.
Yeah. Well, what an excellent show. I tell you, we're going to have to close, but everyone, please, if you are interested in finding out more about yourself and, for whatever reason, if it's really just trying to figure out your own passions in life, your own, maybe your own destiny, and maybe being a good partner to someone else, please go to lovefactorinventory.com and you'll find the test there. If you have a partner and you think maybe you might be able to help you with trying to figure out some things about each other and yourselves included, you can do it as a couple. And there's a test there also. So a lot of great information here, Dr. Mann. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That's great. Are there any closing words you'd like to leave our audience tonight?
Well, yeah, I'm available to talk to people. If you have questions, you can email me either through the contact form or my email directly, Dr. Mann at lovefactorinventory.com. And I'd be happy to give you a quick conversation. We can do a Zoom or whatever. If you really want to learn more, telephone or Zoom is a lot better than texting. I can't go very deep in a text. But the real value of this, and I appreciate it because we've talked a lot about it, is that for professionals who want to help people or an individual who wants to speed up their development, find greater fulfillment in life, comes through personal awareness, introspection, self-awareness. And there are lots of tools that help people transform, grow, and change. The secret is to finding the right place. Once you know where you need to go, it's much easier to get there.
Absolutely.
If you don't know what you don't know, hard to change it.
Very true. Well, thank you so much. It's been a delight to have you on the show. I so appreciate it. And again, everyone, the website is thelovefactorinventory.com. Please go to there. You can send an email to Dr. Mann if you'd like to talk to him a little bit further with regards to this, or take the test and then maybe go over it with him and see where you're at. I mean, I think that would be wonderful. I learned a great deal about myself taking the test, and some areas that I need to work on, and some areas that I'm kind of proud of myself of. So, it's a very good test, and we want to thank you so much for being on. We didn't even talk about your other books. You've got like 6 other books out there. You're a star in yourself. I do appreciate it. We've had some comments here. Great conversation. Kathy says, thank you so much for the support. Kathy, we appreciate that. It's wonderful.
Kathy's a friend of mine. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for listening.
She says, time to take the test. Absolutely. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mann. We appreciate everything. And maybe we can have you come back on and we can break down one of those, the areas and go in more depth, because I know we covered it probably very lightly, but a wealth of information. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, everyone, the time went by very quickly. I hope you enjoyed this first show about Date the Right One. And we talked about the Love Factor Inventory with Dr. Ronald Mann. I mean, what a wonderful gentleman he is, and sharing with us this wonderful test. I tell you, I really took me by surprise. And I hope that you guys will think about taking it, because I think it not only will help you personally, but also help you in growth in your relationship. Just one more thing to put in your dating toolbox if you're out there looking for to find that right one, because the more we know about ourselves, the more we'll attract the right person into our lives, right? The more we'll understand when that right person comes into our lives. And so we want to be able to grasp that. And when we have that right person, we want to be able to know how can we relate to them, not only on a personal level, but also on, a couple level, right? And so we want to be able to do that. So I hope you guys like this show. We're going to be every other week on this time slot with Date the Right One. We want to thank our sponsors, which is Meet the Right One, a brand new dating community, and I hope you guys will check it out. It's called meettherightone.com. It's a very, very unique. It's not a swipe left, swipe right. It's an interactive singles connection, and we hope that you guys will love that. We want to thank them for sponsoring us here tonight. I am Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of relationship building, and I love you, and I'll see you next time. So bye for now.